What are the different ways that somebody take a title? Why would they do it?
Sure. Well, there's a couple different ways. I'll name them out right away. Tenants in common is the basic form. Then there's joint tenants with rights to survivorship, and then tenants by the entirety, which is reserved for a married couple. The most basic form is the tenants in common, which if you don't have any wording after the two, and this is also, by the way, having to do with co-ownership of a property, not when you're purchasing a property in your individual name. If you're individually on title, then it doesn't make much of a difference.
So that's the default.
That's the default.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So when you take title that way, the presumption is that there's equal ownership interest, so it's a 50-50 thing, but it doesn't have to be, and you can designate that on the deed that it could be in different percentages. The couple negative things are if there's a judgment against one of these two people, potentially that judgment could attach to that party's interest. Okay,
yeah.
So that's a concern that you have to keep in mind. And the key here is really the survivorship. What happens if something happens to one of those two parties? So with the tenants in common, if something happens to that one co-owner, that interest passes to the heirs and you have to file a probate. So there's some legal implications. If something happens, it's not a automatic transfer to the survivor, which leads me to the next form of tenancy, and that's the joint tenancy with right of survivorship. And this one is kind of like a middle of the road type thing, where let's say it's a young couple that are purchasing their first home. You see this typically in this scenario.
Like not married yet, or
that's right, not married yet.
Okay.
And so they are buying with the intention that eventually down the road they might get married, or something like that will happen. And so, but for now they can't take advantage of the joint tenants, the tenancy by the entirety rather, because they're not married yet. So the next best would be this. The one thing that also is necessary or an important consideration here is that if something happens to one of the co-owners, like they get sued. If both of them get sued, that could potentially affect and become a lien against this property. But if one of the two parties gets sued, then it only attaches to that co-owner's interest. The final vesting that people can take advantage of, but they have to be married for this one, is the tenants by the entirety.
Okay.
And that is important. So sometimes people take title in tenants in common, as an unmarried couple, okay, and never change it to the tenants by the entirety vesting. So it's important to have in the back of your mind that if you do decide to get married, then you definitely want to consider changing your deed, because the law treats a married couple as one person.
Okay.
Let's put that in quotes. And so if let's say one of the two parties has a lien against them, then that lien does not attach to that property. So you're kind of protected from creditors, and also you have the survivorship component there.